Welcome back to ESPR Boxing's YouTube channel, live streamed by Paul. We are looking forward to the big light heavyweight clash taking place in London in a couple of weeks' time between Artur Beterbiev and Britain's own Anthony Yarde. Paul, looking forward to speaking about this one with you. I feel like it's not every day you get kind of a pound for pound star coming to the UK. It happens once in a while. It's happened with Golovkin, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford in the past, but this is someone who, is a real kind of feared boxer and arguably the best in their division. So really looking forward to talking about this one with you.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. As you mentioned there, a few big names have come over to the UK and fought. Obviously, Lomachenko as well, fighting Luke Campbell. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this fight. I think it's got all the makings to be a complete cracker.
Absolutely. Looking forward to breaking this one down with you. I think Beterbiev is quite unique in the sense that he's undefeated and every win he's had has ended in a KO, and he's a world champion. He obviously holds the IBF, WBC, and WBO. Was last out against Joe Smith Jr. in a very destructive two rounds demolition job, you could call it. Anthony Yarde, big puncher. It was 23 wins, 22 of them have been KOs. He's obviously had that one loss to Kovalev, which must have been 4 or 5 years ago now. And obviously that's that close points loss to Lyndon Arthur, which he later turned around in the rematch and stopped Lyndon Arthur in round 4. So 2 big punches. I feel like it's one of those where you could say judges won't be kind of needed on the night. Judges kind of could possibly kind of just take a back seat and enjoy the fight and not worry about having to actually kind of judge who's won what round, because this one's very unlikely to go the distance.
Yeah.
Beterbiev is obviously the favourite here, Paul, but how much of a favourite do you think he is? How much of a chance has Yarde got in winning this fight, would you say?
I don't know, honestly. It's a tough one. Like, you look at Yard and yeah, he's looked brilliant. He's nearly got all stoppages as well, bar one. Obviously has those 2 defeats, but one of which he avenged, and the other was against Kovalev, obviously in world title action in his previous world title fight, and a fight that it looked at one stage like he was going to win by stoppage. Um, how much of a chance do I give him? If I was to do it in percentages, I'd probably make this an 80-20 in favor of Beterbiev. Maybe a 75-25 if I'm being if I'm being kind. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously, from a UK perspective, we want Anthony Yarde to win. It'd be brilliant to have another world champion. But as far as the chance I'm giving him, yeah, he's got it. Definitely does have a chance. Beterbiev's getting on a bit. But I don't really think anyone can say with 100% confidence that they fully believe that Anthony Yarde's going to win this fight.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one to see kind of how Yarde approaches this one. Does he kind of, I don't want to say is scared of Beterbiev, but I'm scared of Beterbiev and I'm not going to be fighting him anytime soon, I don't think. I feel like Beterbiev's one of these fighters who kind of has that aura around him, whether it's inside the ring or just kind of at a press conference at a weigh-in. He kind of looks mean, looks kind of scary. What if you were Tunde Ajayi, which is a sentence I never thought I'd say. How do you think Yarde goes into this fight? I feel like, as we know in the past, Callum Johnson knocked Beterbiev down, which I think has been highlighted a lot by British fight fans. I feel like we're still kind of living off that 4 or 5 years later. But what instructions do you think Yarde is going to be given going into this fight?
Who knows? Tunde Ajayi is a madman, so don't know what he's going to come off with next. But in all seriousness, think that it would be foolish to just go out and try and blast Beterbiev out. I think it's fair. Joe Smith probably tried to do that and got caught. Obviously Callum Johnson tried to do that, nearly did, had success, knocked Beterbiev down, but then Beterbiev just came back and put on an onslaught and stopped him early himself. So I don't think he can just go at him, but at the same time, you can't just try and box like he did, like he did in the first Lyndon Arthur fight, because obviously he got beat. Beterbiev is, although he's really powerful and has won every fight by stoppage, he's a very underrated boxer, I feel, as well. So he can mix it all up. He can do both. I think the Yarde performance that we saw against Lyndon Arthur in the rematch, where he asserted himself early and then stopped him in the fourth round, I think it was, something like that. It's really the only chance I see of him beating Beterbiev. Going down the stretch, you might say, oh yeah, at 37, Beterbiev going down the stretch might get tired. But then I think the same can be said for Anthony Yarde. His physique and the way he fights isn't lent to being able to be like a 12-round fighter, in my opinion. I think it's clear that he was getting tired at the end of the Kovalev fight, tired at the end of the first Lyndon Arthur fight. So I don't think that it would be smart for Yarde to think that he can put it on a late onslaught and win on points or via late stoppage. I don't think that could happen either. So I think he does have to win this fight by knockout, in my opinion.
Mm.
Which is obviously a very difficult task. But if it's going to come, I think he maybe has to do what he did against Lyndon Arthur in the rematch, try and assert his dominance. He is a wee bit taller. Obviously he's stacked. Anthony Yarde, he's a big guy. I think he'll probably be heavier on the night. So I think he maybe needs to assert that and try and get his big shots off without getting caught, which is far easier said than done.
Yeah, I think one thing I would say in Yarde's favour is that when I was doing my research into Beterbiev's resume, is that Beterbiev arguably hasn't been in with someone who can punch as hard as Anthony Yarde. So it makes you think that Yarde, I'm not saying he's got a puncher's chance, but when you punch as hard as he does, you've got a decent chance of beating anybody in the division. So I think that's something that's got to be in his favour. Touching on Beterbiev's resume, Beterbiev, he's obviously, we mentioned the Joe Smith fight. He's beaten Marcus Brown, who's a top light heavyweight. Beat a Ukrainian fighter who I'm not going to try and pronounce the surname of. Alexander is his first name. He was 17 at the time. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How high is Anthony Yarde on that list in terms of caliber of fighter, would you say, compared to the ones that I've just mentioned?
Yeah, he'd definitely be up there. I think, judging on previous achievements, you'd have to have Marcus Brown above him. You'd have to have Gvozdzik, or whatever you call him, above him. You look at would you have Callum Johnson ranked above Yarde in terms of the time? No, probably not. I think Yarde maybe a little bit better. Joe Smith Jr., yeah, he was a world champion and all, but if he had a fought Yarde, could Yarde have won that? I think he possibly could have done it. Saying with any confidence he would have. But I think, if you're putting it in a ranking, this is what Beterbiev's 19th fight. I think it could be his third or fourth toughest, maybe third, fourth, fifth toughest fight. I think he has fought tougher. But then again, he's fighting someone who's 6 years younger than him, far fresher, doesn't really have any miles on the clock at all. Is a frightening puncher in his own right. He's a little bit taller, just a bit, and his style adopted with him and Tunde Ajayi is, it's very different, and it clearly works for them. So I think that Beterbiev might not have seen someone like Anthony Yarde before, but something's telling me he'll still be able to deal with it. As much as I do want Yarde to win, though.
Yeah, really interested to see if how Beterbiev approaches this fight, because he's got to be wary. He's got to be kind of wary of Yarde's power. So it is an intriguing one, and it's an exciting one. Look, you've got two massive punchers, so you kind of can't really complain about anything. But it's clear the favourite is. You mentioned Beterbiev's age there. He's actually going to be 38 by the time this fight takes place. He turns 37 around, I think it's the 21st of January. Obviously, kind of time catches up with everyone. The one thing about Beterbiev, although he's about to turn 38, he's still only had 18 fights. Do you think, I personally don't think he's in decline yet. I think that yes, he is not a young fighter, but he's not had any been in any kind of wars. He's not had kind of 35, 40 fights. But what's your opinion? How much longer can Beterbiev operate at that high elite level?
I think it's an interesting one. I think he's turning 38. I don't think he'll want to hang about at the top level for that much longer. It wouldn't surprise me if he retired. Obviously, I think he'd retire before the time he was 40. But, that's only another 2 years, really, now. Um, it's very difficult to say as well because there's been fighters in the past who have looked um absolutely brilliant, and then all of a sudden, they don't look like they're aging or anything. They don't look like they've got miles on the clock. And all of a sudden, they have one more fight, and you're like, geez, they look shot to pieces. Um, and people that have been younger than what Beterbiev is now. So I don't think he's over the hill. I don't think he's on the decline. So yeah, I think no, I don't think he's on the decline. To answer your question, I don't think he is on the decline. But how many years does he have left? Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot of years left, in my opinion.
Yeah. You gotta. I mean, by the time catches up with everyone, it's gonna be interesting to see how he gets up against the much younger man in Anthony Yarde. I think just two more questions from me, Paul. First one, as always, I feel like I know what your prediction is going to be, but if you could just confirm who you think is going to win this one and how, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think as much as I want to say Anthony Yarde's going to win and to go with the underdog, I think my head's telling me to back Artur Beterbiev here via stoppage. And when will that stoppage come? If I had to pick, I don't know. I'll just say stoppage for the meantime. Maybe when we do our betting show or a weekly preview, I'll hone in on a few rounds. But definitely saying I'd probably say somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, good stuff. Got much more analysis to come for this. If you're watching this video, please do to kind of check out. There'll be all sorts of content, whether it's betting tips, as Paul mentioned, as well as like a weekly preview, looking at the undercard as well. Plenty more to come. Final question from me, Paul. Say Beterbiev does win. The obvious fight that I think people want to see is obviously against Dimitri Bivol, which should be an undisputed fight. There's currently rumours that Bivol is in talks for this Canelo rematch, which should obviously be a highly lucrative fight for him. In terms of kind of other names in the light heavyweight division that are around, I think Callum Smith is one. That Beterbiev against Callum Smith's a fantastic fight. Gilberto Ramirez, who's just lost to Bivol, is another kind of possibility, I think. Give me the name you think, not the name you want, the name you think Beterbiev's going to fight next in 2023, assuming he does beat Anthony Yarde in a week's time.
Yeah, I don't think it will be Bivol as much as we wanted to because there's something just telling me that they are going to have that Canelo rematch. As much as I don't think any real boxing fan wants to see that because I don't think we need to see that. I think Callum Smith is a realistic opponent. I think I don't really like being in the UK again. Say Beterbiev comes over, and doesn't get it doesn't go to the cards and he doesn't get a dodgy decision. He doesn't have to experience any of that. A lot of fighters do come over here and enjoy, the crowds that we bring and stuff. So I wouldn't rule out. I'd say maybe a Callum Smith gets another big win, and puts himself in a position where he's mandatory or in a top three ranking with the governing bodies that Beterbiev holds the belt for. I think Beterbiev Callum Smith has a good chance of happening in this just before the summer, maybe in the summer.
Yeah. Look, I'd be well up for that. I think Callum Smith he's rumoured to be fighting in March. I think that's in Liverpool. Callum Smith looked very destructive. So since he's been at light heavyweight, is nearly 33 himself, so not as old as Beterbiev, but not a young fighter. You've got to think for him it's kind of, he's going to have a major fight this year, although his past couple of fights have been on Andy Joshua undercard, so he's not been kind of main eventing for a little while now. So I'd be in huge favour of that. I think don't want to get carried away, but could that potentially be at Anfield? Could that potentially be at the MEN Arena? it's a big fight, but we're not going to get too carried away when Beterbiev has to beat Anthony Yarde first. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. Been great discussing it. Artur Beterbiev will look to defend his world titles at Wembley Arena against Anthony Yarde on January the 28th. Paul, thanks for joining me. I'll speak to you soon. Okay.
Yes, cheers. I'm looking forward to it. Bye.